All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White at Dumpster Fire Fan, myself at Kayvon_sports. Thank you so much for wherever you're tuning in, however you're listening, YouTube or podcast. We really do appreciate it. And we have we're having some fun here. We just talked about our favorite running backs and some of the running back tandems that we're worried about, some of the running backs that we love, some of the running backs that we hate in fantasy football this year. And now we're going to go to our wide receiver, my favorite position. Love wide receivers. Sean loves wide receivers. And there's nothing like wide receivers. And as we talked about in the running back show to start it off, this is a very weird year in fantasy because of the wide receiver value position. There are so many wide receivers that are going extremely high in fantasy football, way more than we usually see. And we are seeing guys, and rightfully so, because of the years they've had, like Kupp and Jefferson and Chase, going very, very high, and it's throwing a lot of things off. But because of that, you also can find a lot of wide receivers down in later round action, which can be great value for you. So we're going to talk about all of that here. Sean, I can tell you this, my three favorite wide receivers, without a doubt, are Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. That's my top three. Literally Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase, and it does not change standard or PPR. I understand a lot of people might have Kupp number one PPR and not number one non-PPR. I don't care. He was so good last season. I am keeping him number one for all of it. And Jefferson and Chase, to me, they're literally like the same. The only reason I have Jefferson above Chase is because I think T. Higgins is going to have a massive impact this year for the Bengals, and that's why I put Chase a little bit below Jefferson, but all three of them could be league winning, could be amazing every single week.
Okay, so you had Kupp, Jefferson, Chase, both PPR and standard?
Yes.
Okay, I have Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, PPR and standard.
Okay.
But I like Jefferson's my number one player overall of anybody.
So you're willing to take Justin Jefferson number one in fantasy?
Over Jonathan Taylor, yep.
No, like if you have the first pick in a draft, you're going to take Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you think for him to go number one like that, he's got to have a Cooper Kupp level season.
I think he's going to – I don't know if he's going to be exactly there. I think he's going to be very close. I like Justin Jefferson a lot this year. I think Justin Jefferson is going to play the Cooper Kupp role this year in that new O'Connell offense for the Vikings. He's already going to dominate target share. And I think something that doesn't get looked at a lot, but you can see it on PFF stats and these percentages that really doesn't get talked about a ton. Coming out, I was a big Jefferson guy. The reason people in the league was down on Jefferson, he played primarily in the slot in college. He was a slot receiver. People didn't think he could play outside. I was kind of shocked because I don't watch him every week. He rarely ever lines up in the slot. He lines up outside nonstop. And that's really not even taking full advantage of what his skill set could be. I think they're going to move him around a ton. I think they're going to put him in the slot. They're going to mismatch him. I think he's going to be the ultimate mismatch this year. I think he's going to be the best player out there for fantasy football because he's going to reel in catches from all over the field. He's already a top-tier deep threat, gets the yards. He already gets a catch machine. And now I think they're going to mismatch him even more. And again, I mentioned it with Dalvin Cook. I think they're going to go to a much more 50-50 passing, 50-50 running offense where it was predominantly run and he was already putting up numbers. I think he's going to put up even more now in this new passing offense. So I like him as my number one overall player. He's my number one receiver.
So I love that take by you because one thing that I don't like about talking top 10 fantasy like this is it's very repetitive. There's pretty much every show out there, their top 10 is going to be similar, maybe not exactly 1 through 10, but the 10 players are all going to be somewhere in that bunch, give or take a few. That's why the real diamond in fantasy talk is being able to tell people about players that aren't as talked about or making a take like that. Because I don't think there's many people out there, maybe I haven't seen it, and there are, that are willing to take Jefferson number one overall. I'm with you on everything. His talent is through the roof. I love him, and I love your idea of what they're going to do, just like what the Rams did with him. And it makes total sense with O'Connell coming over from the Rams. But that right there is something that if you're right about that, that could win someone their league. So it'll be fascinating to see how many people actually are going to take Jefferson 1 or 2 overall like that. I love your points. I think it's awesome. And I think Jefferson's a stud receiver that's capable of doing it. The big question is Kirk Cousins capable of getting him the ball like Matthew Stafford was capable of getting Cooper Kupp the ball? That is the one question there. Because Matthew Stafford can get Kupp the ball, and he wasn't scared to feed him over and over and over. And they also have a back in Dalvin Cook, which the Rams didn't have. That's going to be the one question. But if you hit on that, you can win a lot of leagues, people out there that are listening.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. But I do think Kirk Cousins already kind of force-fed him the ball anyway, and it was without really high-level schemes to scheme him open, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm leaning on that. I also wanted to drop Kupp a little bit below him because I just don't think he can follow up that year he had last year. I don't trust that he can go that exponentially high again. I mean, I definitely think he's going to be a top-tier receiver, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to go almost record-breaking in every category another year because I do think Cam Akers is going to take some of that away. I think Allen Robinson is going to chew up some yardage this year that Robert Woods didn't last year, and I do believe it's just going to be a slight fallback. And that's not to hate on Kupp at all. He's my number 3 overall player. He could win you a league as well. He's up there. I just like the upside of Justin Jefferson this year compared to that. And you talk Jamar Chase. Love your point on T. Higgins. You're going to see him ranked somewhere in this top 10 on maybe that standard side. But I love Jamar Chase as well. That's Burrow's go-to guy. And he's not afraid to throw it deep to him no matter what the coverage is. And Chase will go up and make a play. So that's definitely the top 3. And I think that's a tier 1 group right there, as you mentioned. That's the top 3 to me.
No doubt. So that's my tier 1. So give us your 4, 5, and 6.
All right. So 4 in standard, I have Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams at 5. Flip them in PPR. That's what I have right there.
Awesome. So I have Devontae Adams at 4 and Diggs at 5 for both. Okay. I think they're both – I really don't see a difference in either. I think they both actually bring similar issues too. And what I mean by that is Devontae Adams this year is now going to have competition of getting the ball. He's going to have other guys like Renfro, like Waller, that are going to take away receptions from him, which he really didn't have that in Green Bay. Rodgers was force-feeding the ball to Adams no matter what. While I think Carr's going to feed him, I don't think he's going to feed him like Rodgers was. And I think same thing with Diggs, man. Gabriel Davis is no joke. That guy shot out like a rocking ship towards the end of last year. I don't think Josh Allen goes away from him. I think Josh Allen continues to feed Gabe Davis. He takes some targets away from Diggs, but still think about what I'm saying here. I still have them 4 and 5. I still love both of them, but they're clearly tier 2 for a reason. I think that there's a little bit of competition between those two amongst the other players on their team. I think they're going to be phenomenal year. I think they're going to be players that can get you to the playoffs, just maybe a little bit downgrade from what they were last year.
Yeah, I call these still wide receiver 1s, but they're not the top tier 1s. You know, they're not that top 3 that's just going to dominate in catches and yards and touchdowns. They're not going to dominate like that. The reason I have them flipped, let me go into that a little bit. Diggs in standard, I think is going to hit his deep balls no matter who Allen throws the ball to on the other side in general. He's just going to get that yardage. Diggs could go lose 2 or 3 catches a game and still put up the 100 yards you need in a standard league. He could still easily do stuff like that and still be an over-the-top 60-yard touchdown at any moment with Josh Allen's arm. That's why I have Devontae flipped to PPR, because while he won't get force-fed as much, I do think he's going to be a big-time third down target, and I do think he's going to be a catch machine that is out there. He's going to get a lot of catches, maybe not as much with Rodgers, but he's definitely going to be a number 1 receiver there with the Raiders. Him and Carr kind of have that connection already too, so I like him there. I just like to flip-flop him there for PPR and standard.
No doubt. I totally get that. After them, I have Deebo Samuel. In PPR, I have Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, and Mike Evans. In standard, I can tell you right away, CeeDee Lamb is not there. CeeDee Lamb drops. Okay? CeeDee Lamb is only in my top 10 because of catches. I have a big concern with CeeDee as a receiver and Dak as a quarterback. I have a very big concern with both of those, but it's wild to say this because the Cowboys went from having a really good, talented receiving core to having not a good one, a very slim one altogether. So CeeDee is going to catch a ton of balls. That's why he's up there. So I have Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, and Mike Evans as my next 3 in PPR.
This is going to be a hot take. I have CeeDee Lamb at 10 in PPR and not even in the top 10 in standard.
Wow, dude! I swear the other day you were talking about how he's gonna. You thought he was gonna have a massive season. I thought I was going to be the hot take guy.
I went over some more numbers and kind of like some alignments on defense. Guy kind of went real in depth. He kind of concerns me, man. I think he has number 1 potential, but he's also a big risk that I don't think we have with a lot of these other guys in the top 10. That's why he's right there at that 10-11 spot for me. He's just a big concern, especially with Amari Cooper going on the other side and Gallup being out for a little bit. He worries me a little bit in that aspect. I do think he's going to be a catch machine though, because obviously they actually need the receiving. They need the catches for Dak to throw. So he's going to have to throw it to somebody. And it's going to be him. So the target share is going to be there. But so number 6, I have Deebo as well in PPR right there. I then have Mike Evans at number 7. I think he's just too dominant in general.
Yeah.
They're flipped in standard, if you want to know. I have Evans at 6 and Deebo at 7. I think Evans has the more yards on that, so that's kind of the same way I did that. Let me throw a hot one at you for PPR. 8, I have Jalen Waddle.
Okay, so you have him above Tyreek.
In PPR, yes.
In PPR.
In PPR, I think Jalen Waddle is going to be the catch guy. I think he's going to be.
I like that a lot. I actually like that. I have Tyreek at number 9, but I don't love Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek's nowhere near my top 10 in standard. Nowhere near it. Tyreek Hill is only in the top 10 because of catches, but I think that's a really good point. I think Waddle already has a year with Tua. I think Waddle's definitely the safety net. I think Tyreek Hill might get frustrated towards the season as we go. I'm with you on that. I like that. That's a good point there. I might have to adjust that based off what you just said.
Yeah, so it's Waddle 8, Tyreek 9 in PPR, so they're back-to-back for me because I think they're going to be very similar. I just like Waddle better for more catches. And then at 10, I have Keenan Allen because I think he's going to be the possession guy for a throwing offense because they throw the ball. Herbert's going to throw it. That's just what they do. I mean, their running back is basically a pass catcher, so that's how they're going to play. So the possession-wise, I like Keenan Allen there at 10 for PPR.
Yeah, and I actually snuck Higgins into number 10 for me PPR. I still like Higgins a lot. He's definitely going to be higher in standard, but I think Higgins is going to be a threat, man. I love Higgins this year, so I snuck him in at number 10. So I like Keenan Allen, though. He's always been a big catch guy, and Justin Herbert's going to get him the ball. I just think they have a lot of weapons this year. I'm really excited to watch the Chargers offense, but that makes sense to me. So overall, though, just kind of arching points. I know we're just going through this. My biggest point in my top 10 here is there are guys that I have in here that I am still staying away completely from drafting. One of those is CeeDee Lamb, and the other one is Tyreek Hill. Unless those guys fall to me at great value and I can't pass them up, then I will not. That's the only reason I'm taking them. I'm not taking those guys this year. Hot take or not, I'm not taking those. I'd much rather take a T. Higgins. I'd much rather take an A.J. Brown. I'd much rather take those type of guys than CeeDee Lamb. And that's kind of my big emphasis on my top 10. Because we can go through our rankings and all that stuff, but that's the big thing to me. Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase, I think are clear tier 1s, and then it drops off. And then my other one is CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill are no drafters for me this year.
Yeah, I think the tier 1s that you have right there are solid. And I really think the tier 2 group is Adams, Diggs, Deebo, and Mike Evans. I think that's the 4 right there. And then after that, it really gets kind of to personal opinion. And are you playing a PPR or a standard league? Because I don't think you finished off your standard rankings, did you?
No, I didn't. I can tell you that my standards, Higgins, it's Samuel Evans, Higgins, Pittman, and who was the next one I had in there? And AJ Brown.
Oh, see, you took Pittman high. I put Mike
Yeah,
Williams high. I have Mike
that's
Williams
fair.
in this one. So I have AJ Brown at 7 after Evans, and then I have Mike Williams, and I have T Higgins, and then after that is where you really get into that overload of,
Yeah.
oh, do you want to put Tyreek Hill there because you don't
No.
want to be like a hot take artist and keep him out of it? But I think I actually am going to just have to keep him out of it because I don't buy Tua throwing for a ton of yardage to Tyreek on a week in and week out basis. That just worries me. So my 10 in standard is actually Hollywood Brown.
Wow.
I have Hollywood very high. And
I mean, I
and
love
I
Hollywood.
know me and you were talking about it before, and you were like really, really hyping him up. And I was like, I don't know. Does he have him like hyped as
No,
high as I have him
I
hyped?
can't have him in the top 10.
But I have him hyped that high because I think Hop is going to miss those 6 games. And I think we underrate the connection he has with Kyler.
Oh, it's
And I know
great.
you're down on Christian Kirk, but man, Christian Kirk almost caught for 1,000 yards inside of the slot. And Hollywood's going to have every opportunity, man. Kyler likes to throw it deep. In a standard league, Hollywood's going to have a ton of yards, man.
No, you're right, because that's my whole point with Christian Kirk is Hollywood is better than him. So think about what Kirk did with Kyler and times that by 2, 3, 4. That's what Hollywood's going to do. That's my whole point with Kirk. So you having him in the top 10, I don't mind that. I like that. I just had to put Pittman and AJ Brown there because I think Pittman. I think that the people are underrating the weapon. I think people are overrating the weapons that the Colts have because they have Jonathan Taylor, and it looks like, oh, they can be very talented, when really Pittman's kind of it for them. I think they will use their tight ends a good amount, but I think that Matt Ryan is very good, as watching him my whole life as a Falcons fan, on finding a connection with one receiver and feeding him that football. I think Pittman will get the ball fed to him, and AJ Brown has competition, obviously, but I think he will too. But I mean, Hollywood to me is right there. He is right outside the top 10, and he is kind of like what you mentioned with who did you mention? You mentioned earlier with running backs how I mentioned a player and you said someone that's going to take us up to the playoffs, but then maybe not win it for you. That's what Hollywood's going to do, because then Hop comes back. Doesn't matter who it was, but then Hop comes back and he's going to then take some of those targets away from Hollywood. But for the first 6 weeks, you are spot on. Hollywood is going to dominate the ball.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who I said that about because really, in reality, I think that Hollywood actually has more upside because the Cardinals just sling the ball so much. Like they're just gonna. It's not like you're handing the ball to one running back and you play one running back at a time. Hollywood's going to be out there the whole time Hop's out there, and they're going to have to shift coverage to someone, and it's probably going to be Hop at some point. I really do like Hollywood as a high upside number 1 type receiver that's going to go in as a low end number 1 or a high end number 2. And I think he's going to shock some people and win some leagues being a number 1 receiver once the year is over. I really do believe that.
I completely agree with you. I really like that one a lot. So let me go to a sleeper here. All right. Someone, and not much of a sleeper, but Russell Gage, I told you before the show, to me, he is a big time player for this offense that he's going to be because of the connection that Brady has with his slot receivers. I think he's going to catch towards the 8, 9 touchdowns. I think he could get close to 1,000 yards. He hit both of those with the Falcons last year. Now he's going to have more weapons to take away the pressure. He's going to have a better quarterback in Brady. I love Russell Gage this year. I am willing to overdraft Russell Gage. I'm willing to take him higher than his ADP, which I think is like 37, 38 right now. I am all over Russell Gage this year.
That's actually who I said that about before the show. It wasn't a running back. It was Russell Gage. Because I think when Godwin when Godwin comes back, I think his target share is going to dry up a little bit because they both play out of the slot a lot. So that's who actually the one concern I have with Russell Gage. But other than that, completely agree. He's going to be a big-time target for Brady. Brady loves throwing the slot receivers, has his whole career. That's just it's a go-to for Brady. And PPR is going to dice some people up over the middle for first down conversions. I have a good question here that a lot of people are probably wondering, and it's something that I really haven't worked out in my head. It's something I put a lot of thought into, and I really can't pick. Who do you like between Sutton and Judy with Russell Wilson coming over to the Broncos? Because that's a tough decision for me to make.
That one's really tough for me. I put Judy ahead of Sutton because I think Judy's route running is really good. It's impeccable. I love Judy's route running, and I think his route running will help him separate himself. But I'm not gonna lie, man. Those two are right there with each other, and it's to the point where it could screw you. You might draft Judy and Sutton is the guy, or vice versa. I don't know if I see both of them having big years. I think it's going to be one or the other because I think Javonte Williams is going to get involved a lot too. I am going with Judy right now, unless we hear some reports in camp. And if so, we'll obviously report that here on the Money Down Pod. But right now, my guy is Judy over Sutton, but it's a slim pickings, man.
Here's my big worry. Russ has never played with like a receiver kind of like Judy, where he's like a possession route running guy. Whereas he has big success with DK Metcalf throwing it over the top to a tall receiver, which Sutton can get deep on you real quick. He might not be the physical freak that DK is, but he could definitely go up and get those high point balls and run up under it. The other thing that's kind of sneaky is Russ has always had success with that Doug Baldwin, like Tyler Lockett type. And Baldwin would probably be the closest to Judy, but Baldwin was always a little bit quicker. The guy that you actually watch out for with that is KJ Hamler. That's kind of a sleeper one that's way back in the draft. Russ loves throwing to receivers like that. So I'd keep an eye on him as a value pick, it down in the hundreds somewhere if you need a receiver. Maybe not start him right away that week one, but he's definitely someone that you want on your bench because after week one, he could have a big-time game, and all of a sudden he's the number one waiver pickup guy there is.
Without a doubt. That's a good point. I want to hit on this real quick. And again, for all you bettors out there, we're going to do a whole show on over-under players. But if you correlate, which don't always do, if you correlate thinking that they're going to have a good season yards-wise and correlate that to fantasy, this could be good information for you. I have already locked in bets, and again, we will cover this on our betting show, of over yards for Darnell Mooney and Juju Smith-Schuster. I think both of those guys soar over their value, over their overall yards. And those are two guys, again, got to get them at the right position. We're talking about average draft position that I think could do very well, especially Darnell Mooney, because he is literally the only option Justin Fields has. Literally the only option Justin Fields has. And he was really good last year. I think he takes an even bigger step up this year. And while I was someone that was super down on Juju the last couple years, I haven't had Juju on my fantasy team in probably like 3 years. I will be looking to draft him this year if I get him in the right draft value, because I think Patrick Mahomes will make Juju Smith-Schuster a really good receiver again.
Yeah, I think he's going to be excellent out of the slot. He's going to be a huge PPR option, in my opinion. Yeah. Definitely a good possession guy. So I don't like to mention this because, I mean, anyone that it's in me and Kayvon are in like 3 different leagues together. So anyone that's in our league is going to know this. Everyone saw how high I am on Hollywood and Justin Jefferson, obviously. One of the guys I really want to draft this year, I honestly think Mecole Hardman's going to be a beast. I really love Mecole Hardman out of Kansas City. Everyone thinks it's going to be Sky Moore, or maybe people think that Kelsey might elevate even more with Tyreek Hill gone. I think Mecole Hardman's going to take that role, and I think he's going to like really produce. I mean, like big time. I think you saw it at the end of last year. He started to play a lot better. You saw him get some big target shares. You actually saw him in the playoff games kind of complaining about his touches because he felt like he had the mismatch out there.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill not only went deep a lot, Tyreek Hill called a lot of bubble screens. Tyreek Hill called a lot of short passes and slants. Those targets are going to have to go to somebody. And while Sky Moore is good and quick, Mecole Hardman's the burner, and I think Mecole's going to take that role. So I really think he's going to take a lot of that target share that's going to be taken out by Tyreek Hill. A lot of people are speculating it goes to other places. I think it goes to Mecole, to be honest. I really like Hardman this year in fantasy. I think he's going to be a big-time play.
I like that. That's a cool take. I'm a little worried about how many targets he can handle, and I do think that the Chiefs are really going to focus on spreading the ball around, which is why I like Juju. But someone does have to take those targets that Tyreek Hill's missing, and Mecole definitely has the speed to do it. I want to ask you about one last guy, and then we can get on out of here. Michael Thomas. hasn't played in like 2 years, it feels like. At one point, we were talking about him like Cooper Kupp. At least some people were. I wasn't. But how are your thoughts on Michael Thomas this year?
This one hurts because I have no clue what to expect out of him. And I know you hate him because you hate the Saints, but he was actually one of my favorite receivers in the league for like 2 years. And he dominated my fantasy teams and got me to the playoffs several times. I really like Michael Thomas. I actually drafted him as a rookie. He is the slant guy. You know, he slants, outs, and quick double moves like 12 yards down the field was his go-to. But, man, I don't really know what to make of him, because I haven't seen him play with Jameis. Like, he always played with Drew Brees, and he was always the catch guy. I don't know how many catches he gets with a target share that's this drastic now, with Olave being the over-the-top guy and Landry being the slot guy. It's kind of worrisome. I really think he's more of a wide receiver 3 flex option with wide receiver 2 upside. He could win you a league, really, to be honest. But I don't really want to rely on him to be the guy to be my target guy at all. So he's someone that I'm going to look at in that, like, I'd say like 50 to 70 range after I've already definitely belted 2 receivers, probably 3, and gotten my 2 running backs. If it comes down to him and a top-tier quarterback, that's really a discussion that I'd really look at, kind of thing. Am I getting my quarterback, or am I taking him to be that high-end flex option? That's where I look at him in this year. I have a question for you about 3 receivers that are kind of all going through the same thing. One's an upside play, but nobody really trusts in him. The other 2 are quarterback situation dependent. How do you feel about Amari Cooper, possibly without Deshaun for a little bit, DK Metcalf, who still played well with Geno Smith but doesn't have Russ anymore? And how are you feeling about a guy that I think is going to be right there with him? I think Allen Lazard's going to be a big-time playmaker now that Devontae's gone. So those 3 are kind of grouped together. Who do you like out of that group?
I love Allen Lazard. Out of those 3, I'm taking Allen Lazard, and that's crazy to sound because DK and all that. I still like DK. I still will draft DK if he comes to me at the right draft. I will definitely still take a flyer on DK. But Allen Lazard, to me, man, for all you daily fantasy players out there, there are 2 guys that I think could have massive daily fantasy impact on the right games. And me and Sean will tell you guys those all throughout the season. Allen Lazard is one. When you get him in the right matchup, Allen Lazard could go for 152 touchdowns. And that could happen a couple times this season in a game. I'm very high on Lazard. The other one is MVS. It's not going to happen a lot. Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It's not someone that I'm saying you should draft. It's someone for daily fantasy. And again, we'll get into that later. There are going to be certain games with the matchup dependent that I guarantee you MVS is going to go for two touchdowns, 2 long balls, like 150 yards, just deep throws, maybe 4 catches max, but 2 of those catches are going to be touchdowns. Again, this is not season fantasy. I'm talking about daily. But season, I'm all in on Lazard, and I will draft DK as well. But out of those 3, Lazard is my guy for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's just because of the quarterback situation. I actually have to keep DK because we have a keeper league, and he was my top-tier pick last year. Because projecting out, I thought Russ was going to stay. And you think, with the way DK was playing, him and Russ's connection, like, you'd put DK up there, in my opinion, before you saw what Chase did, you put DK up there in that top 4 or 5 in the league with Russ throwing to him. Now you don't have that as much. I kind of actually have to hope for a trade. That would actually be the best thing that could happen to me if he got traded to somewhere. But I still think he's going to be a solid option. He's just not a top-tier guy anymore. Amari Cooper, I think, actually could win some leagues when Deshaun comes back, just because you can almost stash him. So he's an interesting one. And a sleeper one for the Browns, I actually think Deshaun's going to connect with Donovan Peoples-Jones a little bit. He has that kind of DeAndre Hopkins, kind of Mike Williams type that Deshaun likes to throw to. So I think he's going to be a sneaky play later in the draft as a sleeper that you can look at once Deshaun comes back. I think he's going to be a solid receiver option.
No, that definitely makes sense. I can see that. I just can't – other than the 2 running backs, it's hard for me to touch any receivers on the Browns till we get the word of Deshaun Watson, which hopefully should come out soon. This is the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White at Dumpster Fire Fan, myself at Kayvon_Sports. That is our wide receiver talk. We just did our running back talk. Let us know your thoughts. Are there any receivers out there that you are sleeping on or that you are loving or that you're worried about? Let us know at Money Down Pod on Twitter or comment in the YouTube page, and we will comment back. And we'll also read your comment live on air during our next show. For those staying tuned, we will be doing a quarterback and fantasy tight end talk later this week as well. So stay tuned for that. As football season nears, we will have multiple shows coming out each and every week, multiple shows a week. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for tuning in.